Good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy World Animal Day to each and every one of you. My name is Reineke Hameleers. I'm the CEO of Eurogroup for Animals, and along with our political affairs manager, Joe Moran, we will serve as your moderators for today's event. And just before we start, let me walk you through a couple of house rules for the meeting. Firstly, this meeting is being recorded, but for the usage of Eurogroup for Animals only. Then please keep yourself muted unless you are invited to speak. And please send any questions you have during the event using the Q&A facility in Zoom. You can find that button at the bottom of your screen, but do not put them in the chat box. Just drop them in the Q&A and we will do our best to cover them all in time. World Animal Day provides us with a perfect moment to take stock of the status of animal welfare in the EU. On this feast day of Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of animals, we want to put the spotlight on all those farm animals who are forgotten or invisible, suffering behind concrete walls, crammed together on barren floors in confined spaces. Today, we will give these individuals a voice and consider how existing EU animal welfare standards are unable to protect them. But we will also look forward and present our ambitions for much better animal protection in the future. As such, I want to welcome you all to Eurogroup for Animals event, No Animal Left Behind. And during this month of October, the European Commission will publish their public consultation on the fitness check, a crucial step on the path towards new legal standards. A step that is there to review the effectiveness of the current law by assessing it against current scientific standards through its outcomes on the ground, and the degree to which it affords protections across various species. And Eurogroup for Animals has therefore been working to gather all the information we could collect on the gaps that exist between the needs of the animals to live a good life and the often harsh reality on the ground. And as a result, we will launch 2 new publications today. One is a granular assessment of the failings of the current legislation to protect farm animals, and the other, a white paper offering a bold new blueprint for how we can begin to bridge that gap between the animals living a good life and the current reality. And you can find the links to these reports in the chat box or download them from our website. The first part of today's event will look at this reality of how the current EU law is failing animals. And as part of this, we will explore what institutional stakeholders see as the main shortcomings and what they expect to change. And in the second part, we will glimpse how farming can deliver real welfare outcomes for animals in a sustainable way for the environment, just as envisaged in the Commission's Farm to Fork strategy. For too many years, animals were sidelined by previous European Commissions. Warm words were plentiful, but actions were conspicuous by their absence. However, thankfully, the von der Leyen Commission has picked up the mantle of animal welfare. And we commend the current Commission for this and believe that if we collectively seize the moment in front of us, we can not only ensure that the EU once again leads the world in animal welfare standards, but that this time no animal will be left behind.
animal welfare is a clear priority for our work on animal protection, health and food safety.
We are delighted to have 4 introductory speakers for you now, each presenting a different perspective on the current legislation and the hopes and aspirations we have for the new standards to come. You will be hearing first from Roberto Benatti, who is Director General of LEV Italy and the board member of Europe for Animals. And Roberto will outline the current reality for far too many animals, not only in Italy, but across the EU as a whole. And we will then turn to distinguished representatives from the European Parliament, Council and Commission respectively, hearing from MEP Maria Noichl, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Netherlands and Minister of Agriculture, Carola Schouten, and also from Lucie Carouet, who is Deputy Head of the Animal Welfare and Antimicrobial Resistance Unit in DG Santé from the European Commission. And after that, after our 4 speakers, there's time for your questions. And we will also invite some MEPs to come in and share their views on the current situation. Now, to get us started, I hand over to my dear colleague, Roberto Benatti. Roberto has been working for LEV in leadership roles for over 20 years and has keenly followed the development and implementation of law on live transport and farm animals. He has also previously lectured for the European Commission in animal welfare courses addressed to veterinarians. Roberto, I'm honored to hand over to you.
Thanks, Reineke. Good afternoon to all people. I want to share with you the need of a revision, of an important revision of the legislation on animal welfare. I want to discuss with you about some situation, what the legislation say and what we find in the reality. So for this reason, we have an historical opportunity to redesign the legislation. And so we have to discuss on this issue. Next slide, please. So the problem is the EU legislation is a good opportunity to try to boost the animal welfare, but the implementation is failing to protect animals in farming. First of all, because not species specific and because the legislation is too much space for the interpretation. The minimum requirements are not fit for a good life. So this is the problem we have to tackle, and the solution we need, it's the necessity of an important revision. We need to apply the legislation to species specific, not covered now, and we have the opportunity to boost the new legislation on the 5 domains to shape the new legislation. Next one, please. I take some examples for you. This is what the legislation say on pig mutilation. And so it is clear that this mutilation is forbidden by many years. But what we find in the reality is a totally different situation. If we look at the industrial factory farming, we find that castration of piglets have realized without analgesia and anesthesia, and there are a systematic violation of the 7 days threshold. There are a tail docking and teeth clipping normally broken. So we have 120 million of pigs in large intensive farm that are routinely under this mutilation. We cannot say this is animal welfare. Next one, please. So this is the example of the general directive on animal welfare. So no animal shall be kept for purpose unless they kept without detrimental effect on its health or welfare. So this sentence is so important. But we find another situation in the reality. In the next slide, I want to show what we find on dairy cows, where the unregulated genetic selection for the unnatural production of milk create lameness, mastitis, metabolic disorder, emaciated body. So more than 20 million of dairy calves are kept in this condition. So this is a clear breach of what the legislation say. So this is the enforcement we realized. Next one, please. So the same is for broiler chicken, where the unregulated genetic selection create lameness, lesion, skeletal, muscular weakness, respiratory disease seriously, cardiovascular disease, hunger, persistent hunger. So the 95% of the EU broilers are fast growing breeds. So this is a clear evidence that animal welfare is totally breached in this situation. Next one, please. So if we take in consideration laying hens, so the legislation say that it's compulsory to have one nest for 7 birds. We know this is a really important behavior for the animals. So if we go to the reality of they call it enriched cages, we find that it's impossible to perform a natural behavior. It's impossible to realize normal behavior for the animals, and this result frustration, aggression, and a lot of health issue. So there has been a big transition in the market in the last 20 years, but this is not enough. And so we have to say stop at the age of cage in EU. And so near 200 million of hens have to go to have a transition to no cage system. Next one, please. So the freedom of movement of animals. So this is one issue really clear in the legislation, but we know that in the reality, this is not absolutely in this way. So we look at if we look at the pigs at the gestation crates. Next one, please. The situation is absolutely unacceptable. So for the gestation and farrowing crates, there are totally restrictions for the animals. There is no materials to root, to nest, to foraging and exploring. So the stress is so high, and normally the limitation is totally limited. So 11 million of breeding sow in EU are under this condition. And we cannot say that this is freedom of movement. This is not animal welfare. Next one. So this example are only some example of many situations where the Article 13 of the treaty where is indicated that animals are sentient beings, and we need to have full regard that should be paid to animals' welfare requirement. So this principle, it's absolutely an important principle we have to take in consideration, and we need to transpose in the legislation concretely. Next one. So if we take all the animals that are exploited in Europe. We have more than 600 of millions of animals that are raised in factory farming, intensive farming, and in cages. And there are a lot of animals, millions of animals, that are totally without rules. Rabbits, 340 million, turkeys, 200 million, fish, 1 billion fish. All these animals are totally without any kind of rules. And the industries, the factory farming can do anything on the genetic exploitation, on the condition, and in anything. So for this species, we cannot say there is animal welfare. And for this species, we need to put in the new legislation some important requirements that are a good life, realize a good life for these animals, for all these animals. Next one. So there is a way forward. It's the 5 domain models, and we need to take in consideration what the science say about health, nutrition, behavior, environment, and so mental state. So we need to create a good life for the animals. And for doing this, we have to move to a new legislation that are taking in consideration all these 5 areas and realize the good life for the animals. Without this, there are no opportunity to match the animal welfare and what the society say with the interest of the animals and the interest of the cities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberto, for this heartbreaking presentation, I want to say. I'm really demonstrating for us the huge gap between this very important principle in the Treaty on Animal Sentience and the harsh reality on the ground for the animals. But as you said, Roberto, hope is on the horizon, and please stay with us because there may be questions for you later on. Thank you so much, Roberto.
Absolutely.
Next up, we are pleased to turn to our institutional stakeholders, starting with member of the European Parliament, Maria Neuchel. Mrs. Neuchel is a member of the Agriculture and Rural Development Committee in the Parliament, and she's also a member of the Committee of Inquiry on the Protection of Animals During Transport, and she's also a vice president of the Intergroup on the Welfare and Conservation of Animals. So we are very pleased to welcome a true animal advocate, Maria Neuchel. Over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this really very, very important meeting today. And thank you to the group of animals in the Parliament and outside of the Parliament. I think it's always a good work together, and it's so important to have strong NGO groups to fight for animals. It is a help situation for us as MEPs, and it do really steps in the future. I think I would go once in the same direction that Roberto. We understand, and everybody knows, that 82% of the people in Europe, men and women in Europe, there was many interviews, they say, we would like to have more animal welfare. They say exactly, we would like to have more animal welfare, more. I think this word is for us really important. They understand that animal welfare is sometimes the rules and the laws from yesterday, but we have now today, and we fight for a situation for the future, and we have to change many things. And I think this is important to understand. It is not a little group in the Parliament or a little group of NGOs to fight for animals. It's a big group on the street. It's a big group of men and women and children. The fight for a better situation, and the Parliament should understand this is the idea of the society in Europe. And what is the situation? I would say for me it's clear, and for us all is clear. Every animal life has the same value. This is for me the basic. Every animal life have the same value. And the next basic is all animals are sensitive beings. It is clear this is not a thing. A rabbit is not a thing. A rabbit is not something you can put in the trash. A rabbit is a being and have feeling and have emotions and so on. But the reality is very, very different. You spoke before. Yes, there is a big gap between the reality and the situation and the paper. The papers are very, very good sometimes, but the reality is not so good. The reality is a disaster, and many, many papers are missing. I would say your headline to say no animals left behind is exactly the idea that every animal life has the same value and they have to do something. I would say the health check, the idea of a health check for all regulations about animals, it's very important. For example, the effectiveness. How effective are the rules we have now? How relevant are the rules and the regulations? We need a clear position for how is the link to the food regulations? How is the link to the environmental regulations and to the internal market? This is very important. And we have on the other side new papers on the table, for example, the Green New Deal. The timing is perfect. The timing to do a health check, to do a check of all regulations is really perfect. And we have so many crazy issues. For example, last week there was a meeting in the petition committee, and there was old papers on the table from 2012, 2014. We know it is not allowed to cut the tails of the pigs. But everybody do this. In Germany, 90% of the pigs have a cut of tail situation. And we have petitions in Europe, people, women and men, they fight and send papers and say, this is a shame for Europe, it's a shame. Yes, we have a rule, but we have so many possibilities to go out of the rule. And we have the situation that many years after a clear situation, it is not allowed to cut the tails, and many years after the situation is the same as before. The situation about the rabbits, and I would say thank you once more to Roberto. I think the rabbits is the most it's the most shame for me to have no special regulation for the rabbits. We tried to do this in the past. We tried to get a regulation, but the majority in the plenary room was too weak. We have no majority for a special regulation for the rabbits, and the rabbits are the second group of the slaughtered animals in Europe. Nobody knows this, but this is the reality. We have so many problems with the transport situation in transport in Europe, and the transport situation in third states, and the situation in the slaughterhouses. We have rules, but we have so many loopholes, and it's possible to go around roundabout the rules and not do the rules in the good way. And we have the idea to stop the cage age. Yes, I would say these are for me as a member of the European Parliament, these are for me the most important point in the animal situation of the farmer animals. I'm in the Agriculture Committee. For me, is the view about the farm animals always have priority. This should not say that the laboratory animals or the wild animals or the pets are not the same value, but I think it's normal. Every member in the European Parliament have a clear position, and my place is the Committee of Agriculture, and for me it's important to fight for the animals in the farms. What is the timing now? The timing is we have a press release, and the press release, the name is Green Deal. The Green Deal is not more than a press release. Sometimes I heard from outside, hey, the Green Deal is a big paper. No. The Green Deal is an idea. The Green Deal is an idea, is a press release from the Commission, and it's good. It's a good situation. But this press release get babies. This press release, this Green Deal idea, get babies. For example, the Farm to Fork strategy is a baby. It's come out of the Green Deal, or the biodiversity strategy is a baby about the Green Deal, and we have to fight for that. The Green Deal get new babies for good law for the animal welfare. This must be the idea, and the timing is good. The timing is good, and more people in the European Parliament and outside understand there is a link between food and animal welfare. They understand there is a link between animal welfare and environment to protect the environment. And they understand there is a link between the health situation from the human and the health situation from the animal. To understand there is a link, everything is together. This is so important. And I think the timing for make a health check and a check situation of all rules, the timing is good. We have to do it now. I think on the Robert, you said before, we have so many loopholes. We have a bad situation of implementation, and we have standards on the paper, but not standards in the farm. This we have to fight for, that we have minimum standards for all, and we have to understand there is no day to stand on the same place. Animal welfare is the same as welfare for women for gender equality, for example, or other. Is a situation. There is always oh God, how to say it in English? There is always to have to do the next step, and the next step. This is nobody could be fixed for 10 years. There is a progressive idea behind, an idea that if we understand more about animals, then we have to do the next rule. If we understand more about the well-being, then we have to do the next step. This is no rule can have a time for 100 years. We have to understand it is always a rule for this time, and in the next time we need the next step and the next step. I would end with the petition from the animal group, and this I think is really important. Good health is the basic for all animals. A happy life is the next. No animal life transport, natural behaviors, good nutrition, positive mental experience. The Robert said the same before, and expanding the circle of compassion to including all species. This is our basic. There we fight for these points. We fight for. And once more, I would say thank you once more for all fighters on the street with a big organization behind or without organization. This is so important. It's important to get the energy from the street in the parliament and in the papers and in the new rules and the new regulations. Thank you once more.
Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you also for your energy and your fighting spirit in the European Parliament to make sure that we will have that breakthrough moment for farm animals coming up now. And I know that you won't rest till the Commission has published very ambitious new legislation. So please, Maria, stay with us a bit longer. There may be questions for you after our next speakers. Thanks so much again. So now we turn to the Council. We are honored to have a message from Carola Schouten, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Agriculture of the Netherlands. And in recent years, the Netherlands has been one of the driving forces for change for animals in the Council. So let us see what the Minister has to say. Thank you, Carola Schouten, for your contribution to today's event. And indeed, we look forward to hearing more about the declaration by the VUGS Alliance. So several countries, including Sweden, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium, launching a new statement on animal welfare. And this will already happen next week. So we very much look forward to that. Finally, but certainly not least, I would like to welcome Lucie Carouet, the Deputy Head of the Animal Welfare and Antimicrobial Resistance Unit at DG Santé in the European Commission. Lucie took up this post in February this year, previously having worked for 3 Director Generals in Santé and worked in a variety of roles within the Director General before this. Lucie, I'm very happy to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Reineke, and thank you for having invited me to this event. I also, from my side, want to wish a very happy World Animal Day to every one of you. And now I will turn to my brief overview of where we are on this process of revising the animal welfare legislation that you already introduced. So basically, this follows from the announcement made in the Farm to Fork strategy in May 2020 that the Commission will carry out what we call a fitness check. So basically an evaluation of the existing animal welfare legislation in view of revising that legislation by the end of 2023. So the Farm to Fork strategy explains the 4 objectives of this exercise. First, it is to align the legislation with the latest scientific evidence. Second, to broaden its scope. Third, to make it easier to enforce. And fourth, ultimately, to ensure a higher level of animal welfare. So this exercise of fitness check and revision covers the full scope of the existing EU animal welfare legislation, namely the horizontal directive on animal welfare at farm level, 98/58, the 4 vertical directives on calves, pigs, laying hens, and broilers, the regulation on the animal welfare during transport, and the regulation on animal welfare at the time of killing. So basically, as my head of unit put it at several occasions, we are, from our point of view, in a historic moment, because it is the moment where we are revising the legislation by ordinary legislative procedure, which is indeed something that has not happened for more than 10 years, and for some of this legislation even longer. So where are we now? We have launched this fitness check exercise last year. We are doing it as an in-house exercise, and we have already done a lot of desk research. We have been studying and analyzing a lot of papers, reports, articles, scientific articles and documents. And we have carried out a series of interviews. And we have actually presented in June to the EU Animal Welfare Platform the preliminary results of our work so far, in which we found that there are diverging levels of implementation and therefore diverging levels of protection of animals across member states. We have noted a lack of awareness of consumers about animal welfare standards, not complete incentives for the producers to upgrade their animal welfare standards, and more generally speaking, that the legislation is not future-proof. So basically, I would like to really thank Eurogroup for Animals for the important milestone of today with this report, because this report, No Animals Left Behind, will definitely bring an important and very precious contribution to our work on the fitness check. And we will very eagerly read it and analyze it in detail. So indeed, as the Minister just mentioned, the next step for us will be to launch an open public consultation. It will be probably launched around mid-October. And this open public consultation will cover both the fitness check, so the evaluation of the existing legislation, and the revision of that legislation, so the future steps. And after that, after the launch of this open public consultation, which will run for 3 months, we will have a stakeholder conference in December. For the fitness check, the objective is for us to finalize the exercise by the middle of next year, so mid-2022. In parallel, because we are doing what we call in our jargon a back-to-back exercise, we have also launched the first steps of the impact assessment. So it is the analysis of environmental, social, and economic impact of different policy options that we envisage for the revision of the legislation. So the first step of this exercise was launched in July this year with the publication of an inception impact assessment which was presenting the ideas, the preliminary ideas of the Commission as to which policy options to evaluate in this impact assessment process. We received almost 1,000 contributions from the public and stakeholders to this feedback process on the inception impact assessment, which shows the level of interest and engagement on animal welfare and in the process we are conducting. So we are very, very happy and grateful for all these inputs. We have already started to analyze these contributions and to take them into account as we are developing our work on the impact assessment. I think it's interesting for all of you to have a look at this inception impact assessment document that is available on our website. I will not go through all of the policy options that are mentioned in this document, but just to name a few. There is in particular the important, let's say, policy option or policy engagement rather to propose in this revision the phasing out of cages for all of the animal categories and species that were covered in the European Citizens Initiative End of the Cage Age, namely for pigs, for laying hens, for calves, for rabbits, for pullets, for broiler breeders, layer breeders, quail, ducks, and geese. But there are also other policy options that are envisaged to be examined in the impact assessment in relation to the 5 domains that we mentioned earlier, to the duty of care, to space allowances, to mutilations, to animal welfare indicators, etc. So basically, I think it's interesting for all of the participants in this event to have a look at this document. Maybe a word on the species-specific welfare requirement that were mentioned by earlier speakers. In this inception impact assessment document, you will see that one idea that is included there is that the legislative proposal that the Commission will put on the table at the end of 2023 could include a proposal of empowerment for the Commission to lay down specific requirements for certain species at a later stage based on delegated acts. For the moment, it's a policy option that is envisaged. Of course, it needs to be fully confirmed and then ultimately accepted by, or granted by the co-legislators. But with this in mind, I want to stress that we have already a number of EFSA opinion ongoing to prepare this legislative proposal. We have in fact 7 EFSA opinions ongoing, or let's say 7 categories of EFSA opinion ongoing. They cover pigs, calves, laying hens, broilers, the animal transport, dairy cows, as well as ducks, geese, and quails when it comes to cages. So you will see that this will be the scientific evidence we will have to develop our legislative proposal in 2023. For other species like fish that was mentioned, we envisage to send a letter to EFSA summarizing our intentions for future mandates to them, to provide us with the scientific evidence for specific welfare requirements for the species after 2023, as we would then develop a kind of a roadmap for those species in order, as you say, not to leave animals behind. So in conclusion, I want to stress once again that the report that is presented today by Eurogroup for Animals is very important input to the Commission's work. It will be taken into account. And also, as the Minister just mentioned, I also invite all participants to this event to reply to the open public consultation once we will have opened it. And also to participate or listen in our stakeholder conference that we will organize on the 9th of December this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for giving us this overview, and best of luck on the enormous task you have ahead of us, and be assured that the civil society representatives are very happy to provide you with any evidence you may need. Please stay with us as there may be questions for you later on. I would also like to remind all attendees, don't hesitate to put your questions in the Q&A box, and we will come back to them either now or at the end of the next session before 4 o'clock. And before we will look at some of these questions, if we still have time, I would like to invite 2 MEPs to shine their light on the existing situation for farmed animals and the opportunities ahead of us. Firstly, I would like to welcome Francesco Guerreiro, a member of the Greens group in the European Parliament, a Portuguese MEP, and he's also vice chair of the Agri Committee in the Parliament and the vice president of the Animal Welfare Intergroup. Francesca, after having heard all these presentations, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Heineke, and thank you to all the stakeholders here on this event. Well, there are some major shifts I think we should highlight. First of all, that we clearly need to shift to a plant-based diet. For me, that's one of the pivotal points that we should continue to reinforce. So giving the options and to farmers, to citizens, the information at a nutritional level, so people can change to a plant-based diet. Because if we talk about animal welfare, this is the best way to do it. That's a fact. So, but continuing on the part of the legislation, it's clear that the current legislation to protect animals, it's outdated, and especially regarding farmed fish. So we should have a special concern regarding fish when we are talking about this upgrade, legislation upgrade. Also, Eurostat states, and I think these are 2 very important findings, that the majority of the Europeans want a better animal welfare laws, so on farmed animals, and this means all animals that are farmed in the European Union. And so this is clearly a sign that, well, citizens are willing also to pay more for these products if they consume them, and this is also an assessment by the Eurostat. So the products that have better welfare conditions, well, citizens are most inclined to pay more for them. So this can also be good for farmers to improve their capability in the fields, in the farms, to get more of these conditions to animals. And so we should also talk about helping the farmers to make this shift. So the support on the Common Agricultural Policy on this regard, well, giving clear examples of what should be the best minimum practices, and this obviously will be uploaded, would be reviewed in the upcoming months later on the next year. But I also think that we should be very aware of the guarantees that we should be having also to European farmers and citizens when we talk about international trade. So the changes that we will make in the European Union, because I do believe that we will make them, they should be also compared to other markets that we trade outside the European Union. So we have to really take into consideration the international aspects of trade when we're talking about animal welfare, so we don't have things like exporting animals to countries that don't have the same measures that we have regarding animal welfare. And ending, just to a question probably to Roberto, because I think it's also relevant, how can, well, this legislation review, if it does incline or not to be incompatible with the Common Agricultural Policy, since, well, it has some good tools that help farmers have more updates on their farms, but on the other side, they subsidize heavily the production of an intensive system. So how can this be compatible between, okay, the new legislation and the Common Agricultural Policy that now sets the billions of euros in subsidies to this type of industries that are very, very, very harmful to animals. So these are my main points, and thanks again for the wonderful conference, and well, we'll be talking.
Thank you so much, Francisco, by providing these additional, very, very relevant perspectives. And before I would like to invite Manuela Ripa to come in. Roberto, what would you say to Francisco's question about the role of the Common Agriculture Policy? How could it serve also this transformation of livestock farming?
Oh, it is clear. Thanks, Francisco, for this question. It is clear and not as simple to give an answer in shortly, but in my opinion, the problem is not the new legislation, but the tools and the strategies of the CAP. So the main issue there, the new CAP is not enough focused on animal welfare. So the main monies and the strategies remain too much on factory farming and so intensive agriculture. So the new legislation is not incompatible with this, but it could be a great opportunity to redesign the use of the money, and this new legislation can catch opportunities through the people, through the markets. So I think these two situations are not incompatible, but the legislation could be a great opportunity to address a different use and a transformation of the industrial factory farming.
Thank you, Roberto. And in this respect, it was heartening to see Commissioner Wojciechowski tweeting today that he expects the member states to come forward with ambitious national strategic plans, including animal welfare. So let's hold them to their word on that. Now I would like to introduce Manuela Ripa, a German MEP, also a member of the Greens group and also a vice president of the Animal Welfare Intergroup. Manuela, what are your thoughts after you have seen the presentation?
Yes, thank you very much, Reineke. And thank you very much for this timely event and report. I can't agree more with you that farmed animals deserve a good life, as they have complex emotions, they feel pain, fear, joy and comfort, not unlike we humans. That is why animals have been recognized as sentient beings in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. But despite this knowledge, farmed animals in the EU are mostly still treated as agricultural products, and current farming system are causing them to live in intense suffering. That is why your report is so important and comes to the right moment. As already mentioned, we are currently evaluating the EU animal welfare strategy that was adopted almost 10 years ago. Most of the problems and drivers identified in the strategy remain relevant today, and there are still serious enforcement and implementation deficiencies. I am shadow for the opinion on the well-being of farmed animals in the Environmental Committee of the European Parliament, and I know how urgently we need to revise animal welfare legislation adequately. I fully agree with you that we need species-specific legislation. Roberto mentioned that, and how we need to present stricter enforcement mechanisms. And I'm fully convinced that next to the legislative work on animal welfare, we need also to involve more the consumers, to empower consumers with an EU-wide mandatory label on meat products, showing pictures of the conditions under which animals are kept. This would change consumer behavior. I like also your 5-domain model that you presented in your report, which allows measures whether an animal has a good life or not. Your model can help to foster the evaluation of the animal welfare strategy and the farm to fork strategy. We urgently need to come up with proper long-term solutions to put an end to archaic industrial farm systems whose negative impact on animal welfare, our health, on the environment, and the climate places the whole planet in risk. So thanks again for this event, for your report. Let's work on it in order to really leave no animal behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manuela, for your support. and for also sharing with us the importance of labeling. We haven't touched upon that, but labeling could be a very good tool also to help producers to transition towards higher welfare systems. I'm afraid the time for this part of the event is running over already, and it's high time to look at the future and how higher welfare systems can are already happening on the ground. So I'm pleased to hand over to my colleague Joe Moran, our political affairs manager. Joe, what do you have for us in the next part of this event, please?
Thank you, Reineke. Well, we are very fortunate to have several industry leaders with us today who really are leading examples of how farms and farmers can move towards higher welfare farming systems, and who have consistently shown that moving in this direction is not only commercially viable, but is actually commercially successful. Each of our next panelists will outline their own experience of producing high welfare products before we open the floor to questions for all of you, and also we will aim to answer some of those questions that we have hitherto perhaps not been able to get to, and also allow the panelists to exchange with each other. First up, I am pleased to introduce Mathieu Loel, who is the founder of Lapin et Bien, a brand which is a mark of Loel et Perriot, a European leader in rabbit production. Mathieu is a great grandson, actually, of the lady who instigated the company, and which, since the beginning of the last century, has become a specialist in the production of rabbit meat. Mathieu, you have the floor. Over to you.
You are muted, Mathieu.
Will you listen to me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
First, thank you for welcoming me and giving me the occasion to present my view on the initiative and animal, especially rabbit welfare. As already mentioned, back in June 2021, the Commission set up a commitment to come up with a legislative proposal by 2023 to prohibit cages for a number of farm animals. As part of one of ongoing revision of animal welfare legislations under the European Union flagship food policy, the Farm to Fork strategy. Of this announcement is necessary is widely impact our ecosystems, our farms, and most of all our breeders. The next, please. Hopefully, we have worked since the earlier 2000s to explore a new way, and this new way, we call it Éleveur et Bien. Then let me show you some images presenting the genesis and our approach of its key point. That's okay for the video.
C'est une association qui regroupe 3 entités, 2 groupements d'éleveurs de lapins, Terena et Cavac, et un transformateur commun à ces 2 structures qui est le lait Pirio. En 2017, on s'est retrouvés parce qu'il nous semblait qu'on pouvait développer des complémentarités sur ce qu'on faisait chacun de notre côté. On travaillait sur l'innovation pour faire évoluer notre mode d'élevage. On avait envie de faire bouger les lignes un petit peu. On s'attend vraiment à ce que cette démarche qui allie à la fois le bien-être de l'éleveur, le bien-être de l'animal, et puis une réponse aux attentes sociétales qui sont de plus en plus marquées, séduira de nouveaux consommateurs de viande de lapin.
Alors concernant le projet Lapin et Bien, on a travaillé sur 5 points importants concernant le bien-être animal. Le premier point, c'était la réduction des densités, environ 70% d'augmentation de places disponibles par rapport à un système conventionnel. Le deuxième point, c'est la présence d'une zone refuge où les lapins peuvent se cacher, se reposer et retrouver l'esprit du terrier. Le troisième point, c'est l'expression du comportement naturel avec le large enclos et l'enrichissement du milieu. Un autre point important, c'est l'évolution des lapins au sol, donc, ce qui permet une meilleure complicité des animaux avec l'éleveur, puisque l'éleveur se déplace au milieu de ces animaux et les animaux ne sont plus stressés par la présence humaine. Et enfin, le dernier point, c'est la réduction du stress au moment du ramassage, puisqu'on utilise la zone de refuge pour regrouper les animaux et éviter ainsi de leur provoquer un stress au moment du ramassage.
Today, we are proud of the enthusiasm and mobilization of all players in the sector, from farm to works. Our breeders are convinced, our partners also, even the consumers are more and more concerned by the animal welfare issue. The éleveur approach already brings together 19 breeders and represents approximately 10,000 rabbits per week. Now we have to speed up. This is why we have strong and proactive ambition. Thus, we are aimed to double the production of rabbits from the process by 2025 to reach approximately 20% of breeders. The next one, please. However, to accelerate these transitions, we need two essential things: time and money. If the motivation is deeply shared, it remains worry about the economical frame. Although our approach is well advanced, there is still a long way to go and require heavy investment. But the industry cannot support on its own. We are already faced with the challenge of renewing breeders, so we need decent time, schedule, and subvention to achieve this transition. But we know the change is necessary for the breeder, for the whole industry, and finally, for the animals and the consumer. In fact, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to present our approach. Thank you for listening. This type of event is very necessary step to show the way and to accelerate the transformation of our agriculture and farming method. Thank you.
Un grand merci, Mathieu. That was absolutely superb. Let me just be very brief in handing over immediately, I'm afraid, because of time, to Ruud Sanders, our next panelist, who is one of the founding partners of Kipster. Ruud actually grew up on a poultry farm and read economics at Wageningen University. Although a previous owner of a large-scale poultry farm, Ruud founded Kipster after, I think, something he might describe as a personal crisis over the effects of intensive farming, and has since 2008 chosen instead to focus on sustainable, relatively small-scale, high-welfare production. Ruud, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Yeah, as said, my name is Ruud Sanders, one of the founders from Kipster. And my first question will always be when I give a presentation. Next slide, please. Is it ethical to feed good food to animals which we can eat as human beings, that feed that we give to the animals? So, for example, you have 1 kilogram of grain. You can feed 10 people with it, and we give it to a pig and a chicken, and then we can feed 2 to 4 people with it. So why are we doing it? Is there a role for animals in feeding the world? So I went to Wageningen University, and there was research on the role of animals in feeding the world, and what they were saying: give only waste products to these animals, so things which we cannot eat anymore. And that's exactly what we are doing as at Kipster. So, and I think that's a very important thing. Next slide, please. So yes, there is a role for animals in feeding the world, but if we do so, if we say as people, yes, we want to do something with these animals, we have to do that in the best way we can. So Frans de Waal, he's a famous scientist, he's always saying people and animals seem much more alike than we think. So, and that's what we say also at Kipster. Our birds, they are living, intelligent beings with emotions and feelings, and we have to respect that. And I can tell you in an economic way, it's very difficult, but the only thing what we can do if we want to eat meat and eggs and drink milk, we can do the best we can. Next slide, please. And that's what we want to do at Kipster. So this is our building in the south of the Netherlands. It's always open for everybody who want to see that. That's, I think, also very important. You don't have to call us. Come and visit us, and the door's always open. You can walk in and you can see what we are doing. Now I will go to animal welfare, because we are not only looking to animal welfare. That's a very important part. I think the most important one if you want to do something with animals, but you have also to have a look at climate and transparency, energy, all these kind of things we solved. You can look it on our website if you want, but now the animals itself, because that's, I think, very important. Next slide, please. And then you have to look, how can we make as comfortable for the animals as possible? And then don't look only outside. It's also very important inside, but also in cage-free systems, it's normally very dark, and we have no daylight in it. And all the animals, almost all the animals, it doesn't matter if you are a human being, a pig, a chicken, or what else, likes daylight. Also daylight inside, and that's the reason why we have a big indoor garden. That's a picture here, because also our birds like to live in daylight, and that's the reason why we put in fully daylight in our building. And another part is that actually chickens are forest animals, and that's the reason why we tried to make a little bit of forest in our indoor garden. And of course you can say, I don't see a forest. I know, but we are only trying. So put in trees, put in tree trunks, make sure that they can have their natural behavior. And then the next slide, please. And that's also very important. To be outside is important for also almost all animals, so also for chickens. That's the reason why we have an indoor garden, but also an outdoor garden. I think it must be possible for all the animals that they can go outside if they want. And that's also, we don't want to have a flat area, make it something with trees or with tree trunks or with sand so that they can scratch. That's important. I always say the natural behavior from these animals is important. So we engineered this since 2013. We started with our first farm in 2017, so 4 years now. And then I want to go to the results, and that's our next slide. After 4 years, we can say the system works. I think it's possible for the birds to have their natural behavior. We don't debeak the birds, so also very important. And important for the farmer is the technical results are equal to the standards of decalb white. That's our bird we have in our Kipster. So also for the farmer, it works. One of the biggest challenges, because of course there are challenges, is the feathers of the animals, but we think it's not due to the system, but it's more due to the feed, because we have a special feed. And if you want to learn more about Kipster, or you want to look at a case study, you can see it on the website from Compassion in World Farming, because they made a video of it, and I think we will put this link into our chat. And then next slide, please. And then I come to our conclusion, because for me it's very clear. I think animal welfare is of highest importance for if you want to do something with animals. And I think that we show, and some other cases show, that it's possible that with more animal welfare, it's good for the animal, it's good for the farmer, and it's good for the consumer. I think it's possible if we want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Valrud. Thanks, it's absolutely superb, much appreciated. Again, swiftly, my apologies, we'll quickly move on to the next panelist, who is Robert Niekamp, a third generation farmer, a Nuffield scholar, and also founder of Wingstreak. He owns a traditional mixed farm with dairy cows and broilers, but from 2006 onwards, he has focused on sustainability, starting with more space for the birds and with energy savings as well. Robert, over to you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation to tell a little bit more about my housing system. Can I have the first slide, please? Yeah, thank you. As introduced, I do have a traditional mixed farm. This is a picture of my Winstreak house. And as you can see, it's not only about the housing system, but it's all about the integration of all the things together. And that's what's one of the biggest issues we tried to solve when we started building and thinking about a Winstreak farm. Next slide, please. When we started this project, the project was originally initiated by the Dutch government to develop newer systems with the animal welfare as a central point. And we discussed and thought about it, and it was a project in harmony with Wageningen University. And we started from scratch, and we tried to set the animal in central point of view. What's necessary to raise up a bird, a broiler, without any conditions for yourself. So we took the broiler in central point, and after that we try to describe some other conditions where what would be the requirements for a housing system, like energy reduction of emissions. It has to be part of the landscape, but we kept the animal central, and we always, during the development process, we always kept in mind what would nature do to raise up a bird as good as possible. Because a mother hen doesn't have a heating system or a ventilation system, but still she's capable of raising up their young birds. So that was always our central point of view. And so it was quite useful for us to start with natural ventilation, to give them a safe shelter, a safe haven for them to start up. And if you think about all these things together, then you will develop a new system and skip everything you know about farming and systems. Can I have the next slide, please? And that's why we start with developing a safe haven. We did a lot of experiments and trials to make a safe haven, but also not only for the birds, but also we are able to reduce energy costs. In this case, I'm doing this housing system for about 5 years, and we can save up almost 75% in energy costs, just because we introduced a safe haven for the broilers, which is heated up, but we didn't heat up the whole house. So it helps sometimes to start up from scratch and develop new systems. And if they are growing older, they can explore more of our housing system. And you can see a few daylight windows over here, but we started making the whole house fully daylight. And if you go to the next slide, please, you can see what's happening if you have a daylight house. And you see it's almost like being outside. And that was a very important thing for us. The broilers have to have the feeling that they are inside, they are outside, but they have to have the safe haven from inside. And that's what we try to develop. And if you see what's happening, the broilers can use a lot of enrichment like straw, but also different levels of place of space in the house. We introduced a daylight gradient into the house, so they can choose their own, if they want to have a safe haven, which is a little bit more shade, with a little bit more shade, they can choose for that. So, and you see also for the temperature grade, because we have different temperature levels in the house, they like to, every broiler has a different point of view where they like to be, and that's very important. They are not all equal, but give them the way to express themselves as they could do. And that's what we try to do in our housing system. And I can tell a lot more of this housing system, but it's very clear to set up the broiler, your animal, in central point of developing new systems. And if you're able to do that and make the connection with all the partners in your chain, then you can have beautiful results. And Winstreak is just one of them, like Kipster is one of them too. I could tell much more, but I think the pictures say enough. And if you want to see more, check our website or check the socials and you will see more. Thank you very much.
Thank you well to you, Robert. And Swiftly on again, we finally turn to Pietro Pizzagalli, who is the General Manager of Fumagalli Industrie Alimentari, an Italian company producing cured meats with complete control over their production chain from farm to fork. Pietro, you have the floor, over to you.
Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to speak about animal welfare in pigs. First of all, what is animal welfare? Improving animal welfare can be an opportunity for pig farming, not only from an image point of view, but also to increase its profitability by promoting product diversification and access to the market segment sensitive to this component. Next, please. Short introduction to Fumagalli food industry. Fumagalli is an Italian food company that has been producing cured meat for over half a century. Our distinctive feature is the 100% commitment of the family on the whole food chain. Currently, we have 3,600 sows with the production of about 100,000 pigs that are slaughtered and processed in our company. We have a turnover about 60 million euro. We have 130 employees, and 70% of our market is in export in 22 countries and 30% of domestic market. Next, please. Path of development of animal welfare was born about 20 years ago with the aim of responding to market demands of retailers in Northern Europe. A key year in this journey was 2014, when we met compassion in wolf farming and sharing the path of development and growth. We signed a program to improve animal welfare in our farms. What is the actual situation? 70% of sows living on straw, 70% of sows are free inseminated, 50% of sows live in a free farming system, 100% of piglets from 7 to 35 kilos live on straw, and 30% of fat pigs from 35 to 170 kilos living on straw. We have abolished tail and teeth clipping on 100% of pigs produced. Next, please. One of the biggest challenges in this change has been the transition to free farming. What I'm presenting today is the synthesis of years of experimentation and data collection that our team has monitored during this process of change from the conventional farming cage to the free farming system. What is the characteristic of a free farming box? Minimum size 6.5 square meter. The floor is half slatted and half solid. Anti-crushing sidebar to prevent the clipper from behind crushing when the sow is laid down. Present of largest nest, about 0.7 square meter with full floor and eating lamp available to the piglets. A good area for water and food for the sow. Well-identified area for water and food for piglets. Area where manipulated edible material, identified as straw, is made available to the sow. Next, please. I show you the innovation parameter of the system. I listed an explanatory video on the animal's behavior in the free farrow. This is the video. In synthesis, what is the innovation aspect? The spaces are larger than those required by EU regulation. The sow can run, lay down comfortable, and move freely in adequate space. The good air quality at the breeding farm is currently guaranteed by a forced ventilation and cooling system. Sows aren't confined in a stall. Sows are moved into the farming pens a few days before farrowing. Straw racks on the wall and the thin layer of straw bedding is provided to allow the sow to perform their natural nesting behavior before farrowing. Piglets are weaned 25 days instead of 25 days, as if often happens in conventional production. Extending the number of farrowing days improve piglets' welfare, as it allows them to gain more weight, spend more time with the sow, and strengthen their immunity system. Sow are provided with a quiet environment for stress-free farrowing. They are left alone as much as possible, particularly during the first 4 or 5 days after farrowing. Only stockmen can know by the sow enter the following rooms, and they do it only when required. The pens are managed in an open configuration, leaving the sow free to move around before, during, and after farrowing. One of the fundamental aspects for the development of free farrowing is the willingness on the part of the breeder to change the company management. In particular, what is necessary? A play late winning. The decision to win at 28 days allows us to improve the quality of the winning pigs. Stress-free feeding. The sow needs a quiet environment, so it is necessary to prepare all the material needed to build the nest, and in the first 24 hours visit the sow as little as possible in order to leave her quiet with her piglets. Free farrowing. The non-confinement of the sow is an aspect that puts a lot of worry in breeder. In fact, the possibility of movement and construction of the nest makes the sow much more quiet and ready to face the farrowing. Controlling the temperature in the whelping room, it is a stress factor that causes the sow to continue to get and lie down, increasing the risk of crashing, which is why creating a large warm nest for piglets allow the sow to manage a lower temperature in the whelping room, making it more comfortable. Box cleaning, the use of straw and a solid floor are two factors that make it more difficult to clean the box. Next, please. So what is the result for the sow and the result for the piglets? Starting from the sow can freely express the natural behavior while building the nest. In terms of production, the younger sow has better performance with respect to the older one, because by not being used, the cage confinement are able to learn faster. Result for the piglets. Next, please. The piglets can easily adjust to the udder, and therefore they reach weaning at a higher weight. Piglets have free access to an easily inspectable shelter than the heated area. Piglets have access to the water and suspended ropes to provide them with food and enrichment material. For the first 24 hours, the farmers does not intervene to allow piglets to take colostrum in appropriate way. Next, please. What our farmers suggest for free farming? Ensure peaceful surrounding nursing farm so that sow can remain calm. Sow must always interact with employer familiar to them. The management should focus on the observation of the sow and its need. Fences should be designed to the staff is always in the sow's field vision, farmer motivation and commitment. Thank you.
Grazie mille. That was absolutely superb, Pietro. We'll move then straight on to the questions, and we've had a few from people on the call. First off, one directly for Winstreak and for Kipster. So I hope that Robert and Ruud, you can respond respectively. Do Winstreak and Kipster use fast growing or high producing breeds? Robert, perhaps you first.
Yeah, no, in the case of Winstreak, we use slow growing breeds, and it's very important, not for the system itself, but if I'm producing for the Better Life label, then it's one of the requirements to use a slower growing breed.
Super, thank you. And the same for Ruud?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit an other case than Robert, because we have the laying hens, and we use traditional laying hens, as you also see at cages or barn or free range or organic. So that's for this moment the same, and we don't use at the moment a dual purpose.
Superb. Now we've got one actually for Pietro following his presentation. The question is, how much straw is provided for the sows? Pietro.
Normally there is in the fence a rack in which we put every day a straw. Our data say that about 300 grams every day we put more straw for the sow. So it's about 300 grams.
Okay. That's clear. Then one for all of you. Despite the economic and logistical challenges, what would, in your opinion, be the next steps in your own systems to further improve animal welfare? Perhaps if we can start off with Ruud with that question.
Next steps is that we also always want to improve our system. So we are going to look how can we improve our indoor and outdoor garden. And at the moment we are only looking to the laying period of these birds, but before that laying period there's also a rearing period and parent stock. And we are also looking what can we do with animal welfare with that.
Mathieu, what would be your response be? Mathieu, are you there?
So the next step for the moment is to reinvest in all breeders. We have many works to change breeders, and maybe tomorrow I don't know for the moment. The step is very important for us and us industry, and we need time for the moment.
Super. Robert?
Yeah, I think for next steps, it will be very important, not only convincing other farmers. I think that's maybe that's the easiest part, but I think it's very important to show us what we are doing and how we can tell our story to the people, to the consumers who buy meat or who are making the choice of buying a piece of meat. I think that will be a very important one. Show what you're doing.
And the same question to Pietro as well.
As for us, the target in the next year is to reach 100% for all the category of the single animal welfare aspect about the sow, about the fattening pigs. It is so difficult to arrive in a short time, but we want to work hard in order to reach the goal.
Pietro, while we've got you, we had another question from one of the members of the European Parliament, Francisco Guerrero, who has asked that, well, given that there has officially been a ban now on tail docking of pigs, routine tail docking for well over 25 years, but that is not enforced in the vast majority of member states, how do you deal with this? In Fumagalli, how do you cope with the fact that this is so unenforced in many places?
Yes, about tail docking, we started 8 years ago to stop tail docking. The real problem, I think, is the combination between ambient and also the health of the pigs. So we have to increase the health of the pigs, and also we modify all the farms from 7 to 35 kilos. When we started to introduce the use of straw, the situation will be very better, and also the square meter increase, it is very, very important. Solve the problem of tail biting. Now we have 100% of our production with that we don't do the tail docking.
A lesson for many farmers there. And a question just to finish for all of you again. What do you think the role of farmers should be during the revision of this animal welfare legislation? And how would you like to be involved, if you would like to be involved actually at all? But how would you like to be involved? Pietro, if you want to go first, as you're already on my screen.
Yes, the role of farmer, it is important. I think that it is important to understand for him that the animal welfare can be an opportunity for their company, and also animal welfare is not something that is too difficult if you are if you have the mental attitude in order to looking at this change is necessary for also our world.
And Robert, what would your reaction to the question be?
Yeah, I think it's very important to involve farmers in the question, in the discussion about animal welfare, because if we want to make big steps forward, we have to involve the people who are daily working on daily basis with this. And it's not about ask every farmer, but if you are able to ask farmers to make next steps, then I think you will be making big steps forward, and not telling farmers how they are doing. Just try to involve them. Very important.
And Ruud, your views?
Yeah, actually, I agree fully with Robert. And at the same time, I will also think that that we must show the farms that they can be very open to all the NGOs, that we can work together, and not that we work against each other, but everybody wants, and that's or this Eurogroup for animals, or there's a farmer, everybody wants the best, I think, for the animals. So, and that must be clear for everybody. So I think it will be good if we talk with each other and not too much over each other.
And I totally agree. And Matthew, last but not least, what are your views?
For me, in first, it's necessary to listen the farmer. They grow with animal every day, and they know the comportments of the animal is good or not. It's necessity. It's take time to improve a new model of breeds. And for us, for example, we worked during 10 years for make Lapin Bien, and it's a first step, but it's take time to improve the system.
Well, kudos to you and to all of you actually for the improvements that you're making. It's great to see that there are some people out there showing, I think, how we can move towards higher welfare systems. And a huge thank you actually to all of you for all of your presentations, the information you've given us. As we, I think, overall have seen that there is a epic, huge gap between the expectations of citizens at the moment. We hear daily from people in terms of the level of ambition that they hold for the legislative review, and unfortunately the cold reality of life on the ground. But this really is our moment. If we cannot be bold now, we never will be. The von der Leyen Commission, to its credit, has the will to take a quantum leap, I think it could be, forward. This has not only been signalled with the farm to fork strategy, but also most recently with the groundbreaking response to the European Citizens Initiative on ending the cage age, promising to, of course, begin to phase out cage systems for animals from 2027. We have also, fortunately, the support, as we've heard, from many MEPs and also from member states in the Council. Soon, though, it will be the citizens who must ensure that this opportunity is seized. We therefore, as Eurogroup for Animals, hope that all here, all involved today, will ensure that the Commission, when it publishes its public consultation, that you help spread that far and wide to every nook and cranny of your individual networks, and to ensure that all citizens know about this so that they can also respond. We've also seen today how viable farming is for those who are willing to move in the direction of more welfare. Such commitment should go hand in hand with moves towards greater sustainability, to a shift in diets, and should also underpin the quality of European produce, particularly against that from other territories around the globe. Now really is the time. So look, we hope that you have enjoyed the webinar today. Thank you very much to all of those of you who have attended and given us your time, presented, asked questions, and listened. Please do go away and read our proposal and reports in full. Please also reach out to us with any questions that you might have in the weeks and months ahead. We're very sorry we couldn't perhaps get to every single question that was asked. And we look forward to working with many of you to ensure indeed that no animal will be left behind. Thank you and have a good remainder of the day. Bye-bye all.